boys and girls. I am not Andrew Dyer, but this is the Roundball Report, DC's one-stop shop for all things hoops to talk about. And we got a lot to get through. So step to the center circle. We ready to tip off. It's the Roundball Report coming at you now. Thanks for hanging out with us, ladies and gentlemen. We are pleased, honored, and privileged to be joined by two of the DMV's best college coaches, two coaches who had very interesting but different seasons this year. A good friend from Bowie State University, Darrell Brooks, for the first time in over 3 decades, wasn't on the sidelines because the CIAA had to forego its season because of COVID-19 protocols. Coach Brooks had to be strange not to be on the sideline, but we're glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Mark. Glad to be here.
And then, of course, Kevin Broadus, in his second year at the helm of Morgan State University, took him to the MEAC championship game. And now, after going one step away, he's trying to keep things together in Charm City so the Bears can make another run. Kevin, thanks for joining us this evening. What's up?
Thanks for having me as well. Good to be here to see you.
Well, guys, let's get right to it because you as coaches have to appreciate the outstanding efforts of both Baylor and Gonzaga, the two teams who got to the Division I men's national championship game. But at the end of the day, it was Baylor who ended a 29-game win streak by Gonzaga, and it was a masterful performance. So do each of these teams now qualify as blue blood programs? And what did you make of the performance, particularly of Baylor in that title game? Kevin, let's tip off with you.
I mean, what puts you in the category of a blue blood? First, that would be my question. And second is, I'm not one of the experts to say, if you're blue blood worthy or not, but those are two good programs. Both, well, the Big 12 is a great conference, and I think Gonzaga is the West Coast or the WAC. I can't remember exactly.
It's the conference that used to be known as the WCC.
Right, West Coast Conference. But I tell you, they're two excellent programs, and Baylor had an unbelievable year until they got stopped with COVID, and I wasn't surprised what happened because a lot of times athleticism and, really good shooters, they were one of the best shooting teams in the country. I was not surprised that they won. Now, leading up to that, people, said Gonzaga would have a chance to win it, but the odds were stacked against them because a lot of times, going undefeated is one of the hardest things to ever do. But it was just a great tournament, two great teams, and I totally forgot the question, to be honest with you. It was a great game, a great tournament, and, it was just fun to watch. And you can't discount that UCLA team, too. I mean, they play it. Going as 11th seed and getting to where they got to. I mean, it's a hell of a tournament. So
it was a heck of a tournament, despite the fact that it was in a bubble. But Coach Brooks, that's a big term that people like to put on the elite programs, that blue blood thing. And you really feel bad because I guess Gonzaga continues to be that little train that could. And right at the moment when you think they can, they run into a buzzsaw like Baylor. When you look at that game from an X and O standpoint, what were the keys to Baylor's success in that championship game?
Yeah, well, first of all, Gonzaga is not the little train that could anymore. Gonzaga is really good. They've established themselves over time. So I think they're a high major program. They're really good. What I saw and what I thought, I just thought Baylor was the much better defensive team. And I thought they were obviously more athletic. I thought they were tougher from top to bottom on that night. But I just thought that their defensive effort, and then like Kevin said, they shoot the crap out the ball anyway. but they defend as well as any team I've watched this year.
Yeah, Kevin, let me ask you this. When you're recruiting, pardon me, I had a coach once tell me, you can make an athlete a ball player, but you can't make a ball player an athlete. And it just seemed to me when the mano-a-mano in that matchup came together, the better athletes with tremendous basketball skills were able to impose their will in that game. I'm anxious to get your thoughts, having been on the sidelines, having been in a Final Four. What was your sense of athletes versus ball players when looking at how those teams matched up?
That's a good statement. I mean, you can't make a non-athletic person an athletic person, but I tell you one thing, that's a 1-game series. That's the first thing. But I think if they played a 5-game series, I'm not too sure Baylor would beat them 3 out of 5. Everyone saw the best that Baylor had to offer that night, and probably one of the worst outings for Gonzaga. Gonzaga is way better than they played, and that's the sad part. It's a 1-game, series. But if they played 5 or 7-game series, I'm willing to go on the limb to say Gonzaga will beat them most of the time. It's basketball is a funny thing. They talk about athletes, they talk about IQ. On any given night, I mean, if all athletic teams were, like that night, that's not to say they would win a national championship. It was just their time. Baylor had rebuilt, reloaded, and they were just good for this run. I tell you, Gonzaga has been pretty good for the last 4 or 5 years. And I still think when it comes down to it, just as personally, Gonzaga is probably the better ball club, but it was Baylor's time. And, you could talk about athleticism, you could talk about shooting, you could talk about defense. Let's not mistake, Gonzaga does all that as well. They defend, they shoot it, they've done everything. It's just one night. So listen, I'm gonna take my hat off. Baylor had a great run. They won it, but Gonzaga is not too shabby. And I put it this way. I'm willing to bet you the experts, and I'm not an expert, right now are projecting Gonzaga to win it next year.
I have seen that, yes.
I haven't, I'm just saying that's a mark.
I have.
You say about blue buds. I don't know what a blue bud really is. That's just a term, I think.
It's associated, with the Carolinas and the major high levels and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering.
But see, when you say that, when a true definition, this is I'm asking that. Who are the blue bloods? I mean, they say certain schools, but it's certain schools out there probably just as good, if not better than some of them you're talking about. So there is no true definition of a blue blood, and there's no true team. They say the Carolinas, the Kansases, but is Georgetown a blue blood? Connecticut. I mean, I'm just throwing names out. I mean, so it's just a figure of speech, I think. But Gonzaga, if you want to say, they're one of the top programs in the country. I mean, think about this. In the last 5 years, I guarantee they've been in the top 5 every year the last 5 years. So are they a blue blood? I mean, I don't know.
Well, Darrell, let's talk for a second about that individual ball pressure defense. You and I had an offline conversation. Just the way that Baylor gets in your space and just annoys you. They crowd you, and then they got those big bodies, man. I mean, was that not like the perfect individual man-to-man defensive effort? I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen any team just go ahead, with the exception, Kevin, of early Georgetown teams, the Bebe Derms and the Perry McDonalds and those boys. And to me, that was reminiscent of what we saw in the championship game, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and that's a great comparison. Those Georgetown teams or Coach Thompson's back then, what they did physically defensively was they made the officials adjust to them. They attacked you, they hounded you, they touched you. They were very, very physical, and the officials adjusted to them. And I thought that's what happened with Baylor the other night. They were, and I've watched a lot. I didn't coach this year, but I've watched a lot of games this year, and that was as good a defensive performance as I can remember this year.
Kevin, to the point about, defense, and people always say it's offense that sells tickets, but defense that wins championship. Does that still hold true to form in this generation of basketball, in your opinion?
I think so, yes. I mean, yes, offense is the excitement, but defense can be exciting too when you have guys back there blocking shots. Yes, defense win championships. Yes, exactly.
So how you guys convince kids to buy into that?
Playing time. It's the common denominator. You want to play, you play defense. Because somebody on your team is going to play defense. Someone's going to buy in. You got to get the other guys to buy in as well. And if they want to play, they're going to play defense.
Interesting stuff. Go ahead, Coach Brooks. You want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I always say to guys, coaches are going to play the best defensive guy. He's going to probably start, and he's going to probably play a lot. The best shooter may not start. He may not start, and he may not play a ton of minutes just because he's the best shooter. So again, like Kevin said, defense is definitely what wins championships and what you hang your hat on. But the way the game is played today, you got to be able to score a little bit too. It's not like baseball where you're shutting guys out.
Hey, now they juice the baseball up. Now, yeah, come on now, chicks dig the long ball and all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, we will continue to rock and roll here on the Roundball Report. My name is Mark Gray, holding things down for Andrew Dyer. When we come back on the other side, we're going to talk some Washington Wizards. I'm anxious to get the coach's thoughts on why so many people take shots at Russell Westbrook and just how good is he historically, and a whole lot more as we continue. For Andrew Dyer, I'm Mark Gray. This is the Roundball Report. Thanks for hanging out with us, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mark Gray, holding it down for Andrew Dyer as we continue with the Roundball Report, along with Coach from Morgan State, Kevin Broadus, and of course, Bowie State's Darrell Brooks. And let's talk about the Wizards for a second and Russell Westbrook. Since the last time I hosted this program, he had a historic triple-double. He's only the third person in NBA history to have a triple-double with 35 and 20 as his lead numbers. That's 35 points, 20 rebounds. Yet a certain prominent national host decided that he was going to say it didn't mean anything to him because he hadn't won a championship and he doesn't make jump shots. I want to know, as learned professional coaches, why you think this guy is so heavily scrutinized when night after night he seems to be able to put up a triple-double. And maybe it's me, but it just doesn't seem like that's the thing that your average mortal basketball player can do on a consistent basis, Coach Brooks.
Yeah, well, first of all, anybody that has and this is no disrespect, anybody that has a mic in his hand and is in front of people, they've got their opinion, so they're going to say what they got to say. So, we take that with a grain of salt. I think that the effort that Russell Westbrook brings every night, you can't discount how hard he plays. If you're going to pick a team and you want guys who are going to play really hard, he's going to be one of those guys that you pick. Okay. And to be able to consistently, he's not just starting to get triple doubles, he's consistently done it. Winning a championship takes a team. one guy in basketball is not going to win a championship. And it just looks like the combinations where he's been hadn't been championship combinations. So I don't think you can take away what he does night in and night out, how hard he plays. He scores, he rebounds, and he gets other guys the basketball. Like physically, one guy, I mean, you can do with so much.
Kevin, what are your thoughts on the way his perception? I mean, I see one of the all-time greats, and I'm thrilled that he's in our town, which is a basketball town, and you get to watch him. But the national opinion is just, well, to me, it's bordering on sickening these days.
Well, you said, Coach Brooks said the exact, it's an opinion. Let's first make sure that's everyone's entitled to it. And the only thing I know, and I could be wrong, the only other guys that may have done that was Oscar Robinson and maybe Magic.
That was it. That's it. That's the short list. The only three who've ever done that.
And you know, when you look at it, that is a special thing to do. Not everyone. The thing that's eye-opening to me about Russell, like Coach said, he plays with passion and he plays hard every night. You can't take that away. But when you're getting assists like that on a mediocre team with and I shouldn't say mediocre players, but these guys he's playing with are not your top 10, 20, percent in the league.
With the exception of Bradley Beal, who I might add didn't play in that triple-double night.
Okay, and I forgot about that. So he's a special talent. They can say what they want. I bet you, 31 teams in the league?
Yeah, absolutely.
I bet you all 31 would have interest in him. I've talked to Coach Thompson, who's one of the vice presidents, about him, and loves him. Says, I mean, he's like you say, he's your ultimate warrior. He defends. He defends really well. He shares the game, which is big in sports. A lot of NBA players are not willing to share the basketball. He's willing to share. And, they say he's doing it without a jump shot. But he scores the basketball. So, I mean, you're going to always have your people who have an opinion on someone. But Russell is a special player. And we're lucky to have him along with Bradley. Because you take Russell off this team, ooh, I hate to see what it looks like. I mean, it's no guard who has been here has put up the numbers like he has put up in the last since. And I'm going to date myself. I could be wrong. When you had Earl Monroe here, you had some guys back in the day that did that, Kevin Porter. But none of these new age guys are doing stuff like that. Tom Henderson. And I'm just throwing old names out. Just think about the guards that they have. John Wall didn't do that. I mean, I'd rather have, and maybe I'm one of the minorities, I'd rather have Russell Westbrook any day over John Wall. And John Wall can score, but Russell is that guy that's trying to get others better. And the one thing about Russell Westbrook, I will say, you never hear him talk bad about his teammates.
No, you don't.
You never hear him, and that's a mark of a good point guard. He's dealing with the hand he's dealt. You never hear him complain. So they can say what they want. and I can tell you one thing about Russell. I was talking to Coach Thompson about this. He don't care what they say. He's not that type of guy. He's not built like that. He could care less. You know what? He's making about $20-something million a year. He could care less. And he gives $20 million a year effort every night.
Every night. Yeah. Hey, Mark, I got a Russell Westbrook story.
Please share.
So we were at GW, and we were going out to play UCLA, and the starting point guard at the time, who's in the league now, I can't call his name. One of like 2 or 3 brothers that are in the Collison.
Oh,
so Darrell
Collison.
Yeah. So he was the starting point guard. And he got hurt. He hurt his ankle, and he had missed a few games. So as I'm watching film and I'm preparing for the game, Coach Hobbs comes into my office one day, and he's like, "Yeah, man, like with Carlson out, man, like, man, we got like a pretty, got give us a good shot. I said, Coach, I don't know who this dude Westbrook is, because he started playing when he started playing full time. I said, I don't know who this dude is, but he's a bad boy, and you could see he wasn't getting the numbers. But again, like Kevin said, you can't find guys that play as hard as he plays every night. Like he don't take nights off.
And it was funny to watch UCLA play in the national semifinals, because I saw a team that embodied the principles of that team that you went out to face, which was then coached by Ben Howland. They were tough, and he's an aggressive point guard. And that was just a slew of those same type of players that were coming out of that program right now. And I think that may be what Mick Cronin is doing right now, is just restoring the toughness to Westwood. And can you all talk about that for a second? I think that's a very interesting point. Can you make your teams tougher by coaching?
You want to take that, Kev?
You've been doing it longer than me. I mean, I have an opinion, but I'm pretty sure you know better than I do.
Now, again, my thought is you can make a team tougher by what you emphasize every day. And you emphasize it, you demand it, and there's no wiggle room. This is what we do every single day. And if you look at the tough physical, the tough teams, there's a standard. I think there's a standard, and I think as a coaching staff, you establish that standard and you hold guys to it. And then from a recruiting standpoint, you look for guys that kind of fit in that mold.
So it begins with your program philosophy, or is it about the
absolutely?
Okay,
absolutely.
Interesting. And so I guess it's a thought process that you got to go through to get the kids to buy in, or is that something that you have to assess during the recruiting process?
Well, I think you're going to assess it you're going to see them play, and you're going to get a feel for what they can do. You're going to get a feel for, are they going to take a charge? Are they going to dive on the floor for the loose ball? Are they going to guard? You'll see that. But when you get them in your program standards are what sets the tone every day. This is what we do every single day. And I think that's how you put teams together and establish teams. I've been with some really good head coaches, and that was the thing that they all emphasized.
Seems like the defensive coaches do have a long track record of being successful, because offense, ups and downs, defense stays with you, defense travels, and all of that good. And when you got a head like Russell Westbrook at the top to lead things, that certainly helps any team out. What do we make? I see a Wizards team that's taking baby steps right now. They've gotten better, especially since Russell has gotten more comfortable with the offense. He's gotten healthy. They've gotten healthy. Kevin, do you get the sense they're turning the corner? They're getting better as a team. They're learning how to win. I mean, they've lost for so long. Can you talk about changing the culture and how to get teams to win or learn how to win?
Honestly, I follow, but I don't follow that close. And when you're talking about changing the culture, and they need to take a little more than baby steps in the conference that they're in. I mean, the Nets are unbelievable. The Sixers are really good. So, when you say, in the NBA, it's different than college and high school, AAU, and all. Baby steps don't keep you around in the NBA. And when you have teams like that, and I'm gonna use the Nets tonight more so than anybody. They have guys getting hurt every week, and they still got 3-4 superstars on the floor. I mean, that's the difference. See, we're sitting here talking about Russell Westbrook, one guy. When they go play the Nets, you have a potential 5-player all-star team right there. When you
3 Hall of Famers.
Yeah. So they got to take more than baby steps. Then they go up to Philadelphia. You have 2 all-stars on that team. And then, I mean, and so on and so forth. So, you know, I don't follow it, the NBA, as much as probably Coach Brooks does. It's baby steps right now is not going to get it done, you know. So I think we got to start taking some skip steps. We got to start skipping. I don't know much people because, you know, Boston is having a down year, but they have 3 All-Stars on their team, you know. So we're in a tough division.
Yeah, tough conference because you look at Miami, you know, for those of you who play spades or bidwist, depending on how you look at it, Miami has 2 in a possible when you think about Bam Adebayo and the guard whose name escapes me.
Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler. You know, so and then they got a couple young players as well. But Kevin, you like the makeup of that Nets team. You mentioned them twice, huh? They got 3 Hall of Famers too. And
I tell you, their role players are pretty daggone good. I mean, now they got Jamarcus Aldridge, you know, the boy that jumps all over the place, the light-skinned boy, I can't think of his name.
Blake Griffin.
They got one of the kids that I coached for 3 years, Jeff Green, who's having a great year. I mean, they have players. And, you know, we're not even going to talk about their stars. See, when we talk about Russell, you know, we're talking about a good individual talent. They have MVP caliber players, 3 of them. I mean, right now, James Harden's the MVP of the league. And if Kevin Durant gets healthy, he's MVP of the league. And then you have the Sage man, who's, I mean, he's dynamic. So, you know, we gotta do more than take baby steps.
So you're going to implement Sage as a part of the training process next season?
That's something I've never seen in my life. That was interesting. You know, and people say he's this, he's that. But I tell you what he is, he's a pretty damn good player.
Oh, there's no doubting it. You just, something about going AWOL and not having a reasonable excuse that would concern me just a little bit if I were a Nets fan. But you look at that 3-headed monster and they well coached. They've got one guy who has a tremendous offensive mind in Mike D'Antoni. Steve Nash seems to be a lot like Steve Kerr in terms of the way they massage the players' egos. They seem to have come together at the right time. But again, there's a fellow you might have heard, LeBron, out on the West Side. Lakers fortified themselves with Andrew Drummond, so they get another big. Hopefully Anthony Davis will come back. Is that the finals matchup we want to see, guys? Lakers versus Nets when all is said and done?
Coach?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that. I mean, I'll take that in a minute. You know, you talked about the Sage man going AWOL, and you know why it wasn't a big deal? Because Kevin Durant and Harden. So any one of those guys, you know, they can take a day off. Durant's been hurt. They like Kevin said, they have so many pieces, and I think in a 7-game series with the Lakers, I think their pieces will determine that over the course of 7 games. I think they would win that series, but I'd love to see it.
Well, nothing like chalk talk with 2 of the best, Kevin Broadus and Darrell Brooks, pardon me. Thanks to Coach Kevin Broadus, thanks to Coach Darrell Brooks, I'm Mark Gray. And holding things down for Andrew Dyer, reminding you that basketball is the carrot, education is the key, and you can't be a great basketball player unless you're smart. Join us next time as we keep you in the groove on the Roundball Report.